Well, thank you very much, Lynn. Really appreciate it. Really honored to be here with the Atwater Library, and thank you for coming out. I know a few people are still stuck on the metro, and thank you all those on Zoom and online. Really appreciate you coming out. It's a topic that is getting more and more popular, and when I do these presentations, everyone is kind of at their own level in their life. And so I try to include many aspects to try to cover as much as possible. And this is why we're providing the presentation afterwards, because there's going to be a lot of information for you. And hopefully you'll get a little something out of this for your own personal life or your friends and family. So Jason, if I do this right, I'm going to try to share this screen. Jason's a good teacher, or we're going to find out soon if he is. All right. And then we'll go back. We're going to try this for a second. There we go. All right, Jason, great job. Thank you. All right, so the topic today is aging in place and transition trends. And this could take decades of someone's life. And so Lynn mentioned my show, CJD's Life Unrehearsed. And whenever I bring up this topic on the show, it is always a hot button topic. There's just a lot of interest in this. And then as a result, I've sort of taken the show on the road, per se, to go about to the communities and municipalities and to give as much information as we can to the public. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, about our Canada's aging population. How can we effectively age in place or age at home? What are some of the transition trends that are going on out there? I get a lot of questions about public versus private and what are my options. We're going to talk quite a bit about that as well. And at the end, we're going to throw in a little bit of some downsizing tips. If ever you are considering downsizing, it's not an overnight event. It could take years. So I've got a few tips for you that we'll wrap up. And then we've got some Q&A at the end. I do stay afterwards, because if there's some questions that may be a little bit more personal to you, I will stand and take some of those questions aside. And of course, at the back, phone number, email, you could reach me even if it's not today, and I'll be glad to answer every one of your questions that you have. Okay? All right, our aging population. The next 20 years is going to see the fastest growth of our population 65 and over. In fact, there will be a 50% increase in the next 20 years of those 65 and older. The boomers are aging. What's interesting though, if you were to do the next 20 years, people think, oh my goodness, this is going to be really a lot. It's only 9% after the next 20 years. And it's the next generation that come in. So really, it's crunch time in the next 20 years of our aging population. We're already starting to see the effects on our healthcare system because of our aging population. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. All right, what do we do? Aging in place or downsize? I think it's fair to say we all want to live at home as long as we possibly can. You do the surveys, it's like 95% of the Canadian population want to age in place. A little easier said than done, and we're going to talk about a couple of the ideas of how you can effectively age in place. So, fair to say we want to enjoy our home as long as possible. In order to do that, as we start to age, you may start to bring in some services. Some of the lighter, more popular services to help you at home is housekeeping. Some people have house cleaners that come in on a weekly or bi-weekly or a monthly basis. That's an example of a service to help you age in place longer. Obviously, landscaping and snow removal are popular services. Hello, Anne. Home maintenance and repairs. All right, we're going to talk a lot about the burden of home ownership, where in our younger days, we could take care of the home repairs, and now they start to creep up on you. And so you need to start worrying a little bit more about some home maintenance and repairs. And if you've got your go-to repair person, great. They're not easy to find these days, especially post-flood. You know, post-pandemic, difficult to find the handyman, handy person. Since the pandemic, we've seen a lot of growth in online groceries and online pharmacy. So talk about aging in place. If you could have stuff delivered to you in January or February where it's icy and snowy, we're starting to see more of that. And in return, the grocery stores and pharmacies are getting better and better about online delivery. They've had to. It's a two-way street here. So it's pretty effective. One of the aspects of aging in place effectively is, beyond those simple examples, is being able to create a safe and secure environment at home. So we can do some home modifications. Some are quite simple. I'm going to talk a little bit. Not putting big dollars, but making it a little safer at home. Sometimes there's some heavier renovations and some major work, even in wheelchairs, and having to put ramps outside and so on. Now we're talking heavier renovations. But inevitably, you're going to have to do some home modifications to live at home longer. Sometimes what's getting popular is hiring an occupational therapist to do a home assessment. Ideally, we can get that through the CLSC, and we're going to talk a lot about the CLSC. I'm just the messenger. I'm not CLSC, okay? So no throwing arrows at me, but we do have our CLSC. They're doing their best. Sometimes we're lucky and we can get a home assessment done by the CLSC. Others, they can't wait or they don't want to wait, and they'll hire someone to do a home assessment by an occupational therapist. Some examples. I kind of let the cat out of the bag. I was going to ask you a question. At home, where do you think the majority of falls happen?
Bathroom.
Unanimously. Bathroom. Secondary, kitchen maybe in the hallways or in the bedroom, stairs, all right? So these are the areas we need to focus on so you could live at home longer. So as an example, you see one of the pictures up there in the top left, you've got a grab bar. That's actually a grab bar. It's not a towel rack. A towel rack is not a grab bar. Yet so many of us have that towel rack, and whoop, little slip, and what do? Automatically grab that towel rack. Now we're in trouble. That towel rack is coming down with you. So grab bars are becoming more and more popular. Lynn mentioned my guest on Life Unrehearsed last Sunday. This is what one of the services that this gentleman does, is grab bars. So other bathroom pictures, you know, bathtubs are a problem. We're seeing more and more popular stand-up showers, but if you're at home, to renovate, to go from a bathtub to stand-up shower, it could be expensive. So now we're seeing some popularity with swivel chairs or shower benches to help you be safer in the bathtub. And then raised toilet seats to help you get up and down. So bathroom, there's a few pictures on bathroom. You see that little night light in the middle picture. A lot of falls happen in the middle of the night. We have to do a little pee-pee. Sometimes it's more than once a night. And I could do it. I know the bathroom's over there. All it takes is a simple little night light like this to give you a little guidance. Many falls happen with that. You're a little lightheaded, you were sleeping, trying to find the bathroom. Little night light. Those on the top right, as you see, you've got those rugs. My preference is not to have them at all. But some people paid some big dollars, or there's some memories related to a trip that you might have taken and you've got those in your house. I respect that. At the very least, get them taped down. Double-sided tape, get them down. And where you really got to look at is the ends, the corners that curl up on you. That's what's causing the problems. Okay, so take a look at that. Try to get rid of them. That's my preference. But if you need to have them, get them solid. And then one of the pictures talks about a handrail. This is more for mobility issues. We're seeing more and more installations of handrails to help you navigate stairs. So here's a few examples of some home modifications to help you effectively age in place. Another part is the ability to provide care. You may be alone. You may be in a couple. But do you have the ability to provide proper care? And I'll give you some examples where we can get proper care. Can we rely on family to help you out? Can we rely on the CLSC? I'll talk a little bit more about that. There is some home care from CLSC. There's the private home care industry, which is growing, one of the things I do for a living. And then one of the more important ones are caregiver support. Do you have that support network for the caregiver? Okay? So this Saturday is World Alzheimer's Day. For many of you probably saw that, September 21st. My show this Sunday, I happen to have Claire Webster, who is a caregiver specialist. Some of you might have heard of Claire Webster. She is just excellent. She's a guest on my show in celebration of World Alzheimer's Day this Sunday. Do you have that support network? So, if you needed some help at home, we do have our CLSC system. It's the least expensive part because their services are usually free of charge. But anyone dealing with the CLSC here at all? Few people? Or tried to navigate the system? It's difficult. Not that easy, but it's there. The government is trying their best to help out with home care. They're falling behind. The government is putting more and more money into home care with the CLSC, but they can't keep up with the aging population. So for those that have been through the experience of trying to go through the CLSC, it's difficult. You need to advocate. However, if you do get some services, typical services available through the CLSC would be bathing, usually on a weekly basis, medication management, and some morning prep and evening prep. These would be, there's other CLSC services, but these are some of the more popular ones. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention is something called potential for chèque emploi service. The challenge we all face in our healthcare system is there's not enough labor. Okay, it's a challenge for the government. They don't have enough staff for CLSC staffers to do the job to come at home. So there's a program that they created, which I think is a smart program. It's called Chèque Emploi Service. After an evaluation is done by a CLSC, could be a social worker, OT, or physiotherapist, you have the chance that the CLSC will assign certain hours to you, and you get to hire the caregiver. Interesting service that's getting popular. There's not a lot of hours available, but just to let you know, it's getting more and more popular, and you're a little bit more in control. You're obtaining hours from the government. They're going to pay $19.48 for every hour of a caregiver that you hire. Okay, so just this, we can get into details. This will be a longer conversation, but just to make you aware, there's something called Chèque Emploi Service getting popular. Now, how do we access private home care? Many families have to go above and beyond what the government is offering. So they look at home care. So I put some stats up here. Some people, it can get very expensive and they just simply can't afford it. However, there are many home care options out there. You will expect in private certain minimum daily rates or weekly rates, whereas CLSC is in and out. You know, in and out 15 minutes, half an hour, or so on. At least in private, you will get some consistent caregivers. One of the problems with the CLSC is, especially with people dealing with cognitive issues, if you have a loved one, you need consistency. And that's one of the challenges in CLSC. You have a high turnover of staff, and you don't get that consistency, that trust and credibility. I was asked, can Matt throw some ballpark prices in public and private? So you're going to see a lot of numbers here. Typically, in private home care, you're going to see a rate of between $34 to $38 per hour. It's the going rate in Montreal for private home care. Okay? I got a couple. I'm going to address the questions at the end, okay? Because I know this is always a big topic. You will get a provincial government tax credit by hiring private home care. This year, you're getting about 38% back from the government if you were to hire private home care. What the government is acknowledging, we don't have enough to help the public through CLSCs. Let's throw some money into the private sector. So there is some money. 38% is actually a big chunk of change. Okay, you're talking $12, $14 per hour that they'll contribute. Okay, so there's some money there. All right, so we've talked about ideas and ways we could age at home. Many people are starting to think, is it time to downsize? Should I wait? I really like my home. I like my garden. Oh, but something happened, a couple trigger events. Maybe I should downsize. And you go back and forth in this, beating yourself up. What should I do? I like to put in some warning signs that you need to look out for if it's time to downsize. So here's a couple of examples. Starting with physical. This is usually mobility. And if you're in a house, 3-4 sets of stairs to have to do, and they're becoming an issue, and a higher fall risk, there's some physical challenges. Getting in and out of the bathtub is another reason why people are saying, my physical abilities is making it difficult at home. Another one is cognitive reasons. Whether you're alone or you have a spouse that's experiencing some early onset dementia, or there's some higher levels of Alzheimer's, cognitive reasons is another reason for considering. That's a warning sign. We hear this a lot. Caregiver stress. Again, I'm tackling this subject on this Sunday show. Sometimes the caregiver gets sick before the person they're taking care of. And that's a problem. And so that's something you need to be aware of. I'm on the phone with daughters and moms and dads all the time. Caregivers in general, first of all, had very little training. They were thrown into the role of caregiver and asking to do sometimes miracles. It's no wonder caregiver burnout is a real thing. The key is you almost have to move from I could do it, superwoman or superman, to maybe I need some help in one way, okay? So that's, and being able to acknowledge that is important for caregiver stress. Safety and security, okay, so I talked a lot about those things. If you're not able to adapt the home and it's becoming more dangerous, if there's wandering or flight risk in the case of cognitive issues, that's also one of the safety and security issues. Loneliness is another warning sign. Perhaps you lost your spouse last year, 4 years ago, 10 years ago. Loneliness is another reason why, you know what, does this make sense that I'm alone all day long? By the way, loneliness, you're here today, you have a wonderful group. This is one of the proactive measures that you're all doing to be with others. So this is fantastic. And we get this a lot. You know what, I love the house, and I've talked about this, it's just becoming too much. Probably one of the number one reasons I see for people downsizing. All right. Now, you're sort of mentally getting around that maybe it is time to downsize. The next question is, where do I go? What to do? So I'm going to talk about different options that people are doing now when they downsize, from smaller homes to private retirement homes, and then all the way to the heavier level of care in the CHSLD. So I'm going to talk about and define each of these a little better. So going from home to a smaller home or townhome, it's popular but getting less popular. And a lot of the times the ego gets in the way, because going from home to a townhome usually means you've got more stairs to navigate, not less. And when I say the ego gets in the way a little bit, it's because I'm not going to a retirement home, or I'm not going, so I'm going to go to a townhome. And psychologically you feel good, but it may not be the right move for a downsize. So always bear that in mind. Condos and apartments are getting quite popular. You are now on one floor, elevators, so they're getting popular. You're seeing them popping up left and right. Condos tend to have a little bit more amenities, like maybe a pool or a gym. Apartments is not many services, but 55-plus apartments are getting popular. I've yet to meet a 55-year-old in a 55-plus apartment, by the way. Okay, it is generally an older population, but this is an option as a first step of a downsize. Next up, senior living options. I always get asked, Matt, I hear on the radio, or I read RPAs, CHSLDs, all these acronyms. Quebec loves acronyms. And so I felt it would be important to define what it is. So an RPA, Résidence Privée Poignée, that's what you and I would know as a retirement home. Okay, that would be what we call an RPA. There's either independent living, full kitchen, you've got your 1 or 2 bedroom, you do what you want, and you have access to all the amenities and services within that retirement home. That's considered independent living RPA. Assisted living, this is usually where you get your meals, you get your housekeeping, you get some laundry, maybe even some bathing services. So a higher level of care, a little more surrounded with more staff, and meals are usually included. And then we've got memory care. So this is specifically for people that might have Alzheimer's or dementia. I talked about the wandering and flight risks. Sometimes memory care units would be a coded floor. Still a nice floor, but you need a code to get out, because the last thing, and we've all heard the horror stories on the news in February, someone goes outside not realizing and not being able to get back. So that's why memory care would sometimes have coded floors. Okay, so that's RPA. A CHSLD, Centre d'hébergement de soins de longue durée, long-term care. A CHSLD is what we would know as a nursing home, okay? And that's long-term care, generally speaking, and I'm generalizing, you're talking more than 3 hours of care. You need help with transfers. Usually there's incontinence. You may need assistance with feeding. You may be in a wheelchair. This is what we consider long-term care, or CHSLD. There are private CHSLDs, not many of them, and the government is eventually getting rid of all private CHSLDs. It was supposed to have been done 3 years ago, and there's still a handful of them out there, but eventually all private CHSLDs will become public. I think we still have a few more years. Now, before I get into the public options, here's what I hear from people that have moved into retirement homes versus, say, standard condo or apartment livings. First of all, social benefits. There's a ton of common areas going on in retirement homes. Usually you're going there for a healthier living and proper care than you could have done at home. The atmosphere and environment are quite popular, especially on those loneliness factors. Safety and security for sure. They all have the call buttons. You're not feeling well, there's always one in the bathroom, one in the bedroom, one in the living room. There's 24/7 care. You're not feeling well, you press that button. That's what you'll get in a retirement home. And I get back to that burden of home ownership. People are saying, that's it. I got a problem with my light bulb or something wrong with my apartment. I'm just calling maintenance guy and he's fixing it. Now, I always get, Matt, give us an idea of costs. And I'm going to give you kind of a gray answer because there's so many variables involved in costs, but I tried to narrow it down on one page for you, and you'll get a copy of this presentation. Independent living. You have a kitchen. You don't have to take any meals at all. You don't have to take any services at all. It's going to range between $1,500 to $3,500 a month. Why the variation? Size of the apartment. Is it a studio? Is it a one-bedroom? Is it a two-bedroom? Do I get housekeeping services? Do I want indoor parking? This will all contribute to the variation of the $1,500 to $3,500, but ballparking independent living is going to be in that range. Assisted living, you're getting all your meals, you've got your care, usually under 3 hours of care. You're going to run into the $4,000 to $6,000 range. There are some fancy pants assisted living ones out there that are going to be up, and you've heard the prices of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. They exist as well, but I'm ballparking it for Montreal in general. Assisted living is going to be between 4 to 6. And then you get into the memory care and long-term care, more labor. This is why the dollars are higher in the 5 to 10 range, because there's simply more labor. You're more than 3 hours of care. So here's an idea of what you'd be looking at in a typical retirement home in private. You do get another government tax credit from the provincial government. Just like we had on private home care, the government will contribute, usually average 10 to 15% of your monthly rent. The government will pay on a monthly basis. It will depend on the services that you take, the cost of your rent, but just know if you're over 70 years old, okay, that's the criteria. 70 years old, there may be some care requirements as well, but those, if you're over 70, there's going to be some government money for you. I can get into the details and the weeds on the side with how it works, but by the way, retirement homes usually fill out the paperwork for you. It's a one-time application. It's retro to day one of move-in. All right. When you're downsizing, I wanted to also address this because sometimes there's no, that's unaffordable. That is just too expensive what you just put up there, Matt. I always like to bear in mind, and this is coming back from actual clients that have made the move, and I know you have Lynn for talking on financial aspects as well. Lynn Bennett. No, not you. I'm looking to you for Lynn Bennett, right. Lynn organizes Lynn's presentations. But what she will say, and what I hear a lot, is we also have to bear in mind what costs can we get rid of when you're downsizing. So if you sell a property and you start renting either an apartment, a condo, or a retirement home, say goodbye to the property taxes and the school taxes and the water taxes. In retirement homes, no more, hydro's included, hot water is included. So there are things like that that will benefit you, and we always recommend the advice of a financial advisor to do a 5-year and a 10-year projection. Home maintenance is done. You know, you don't have to worry about the roof leaking and having to repair or taking out the furnace. Cable phone and internet I put in there. Some places include it, some don't, some just a combination, but there will be some savings there. I also put in other things. What if you have a security system at home? There's a savings there. You don't need that anymore. Groceries and meals. If you're getting meals in your rent, well, your grocery bills and meals are going to go down. If you're hiring a cleaning person, sometimes housekeeping is included. That would be a little expense. And transportation, I put that in here because it's very common. The car is a big thing. You don't want to get rid of your car. Men are worse than women when it comes to this issue, and it's very sensitive. We usually see, after moving to a condo or especially a retirement home where you've got all shuttle services, the car usually lasts 2 to 3 years. And then it's like, why am I paying car tax, changing the tires, insurance, and I'm using my car a few times a month, you know? So know that there's some potential savings there. All right, we're going to switch hats to the public system for long-term care, okay? No one in this room is ready for long-term care. All of us in this room may be there one day. So it's important that I wanted to include some information for you. How does our public home care system, system work? First of all, there's no such thing as a public RPA or a public retirement home. It doesn't exist. The only public residences out there are CHSLDs, long-term care homes. So if you, a family member, a loved one, will start fitting into the category of long-term care homes, then the public system could come into play. Okay, so I spelled out again, CHSLD, Centre d'hébergement de soins de longue durée. There's another category without muddying the waters, but it's called RI, Ressources Intermédiaires. That's just a level below CHSLDs. There's not many RIs in Montreal, but that's also public. Still high levels of care, more than 3 hours. I mentioned long-term care and more than 3 hours of daily care. How to get into a public residence? You need to go through the CLSC. I'd love to help. I'm sure you have friends that would want to help. The only way to get into a public residence is through our local CLSC. What has to happen is if you aren't already getting CLSC services, because usually when you're at the stage of getting to the point of having to go into a nursing home, you're probably already getting CLSC services at home. So now you're tapping into your CLSC resource person. You already have someone that you could say, you know what, it's time for an evaluation for my husband, my mom, or my dad to get an evaluation done. If you don't have any CLSC services, then you've got to make that call to the CLSC to try to get an evaluation. Very tough these days, even to get an evaluation. Plan on several months just to get an evaluation. Little hint, CLSCs are physical buildings. Go to the main reception. Show up to the main door. You're pounding your fist nicely. But I got a problem at home. I can't do everything on my own, and my poor husband is sick for these reasons, physical, and justify it. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, unfortunately, but we have no choice. We have to go through the CLSC. So you got to advocate. Admissions into a public residence, it's not first come, first serve. It's based on priority. And as a taxpayer, I get it. If I have a spouse who's 78 years old and is really having a hard time, but I'm still around and I've got family around, versus the 96-year-old full-blown Alzheimer's living in Montreal alone, well, who should get the priority? Okay, so the system is based on priority. There are long waiting lists. I can't tell you today it's this long, but what I can tell you is we're going to be averaging from 1 to 3 years once you get your name approved on the waiting list. Okay, so you might get lucky and squeeze in at 9 months. Plan on 1 to 2 years realistically in Montreal. Unfortunately, those waiting lists, as our population ages, are getting longer, not shorter. Okay? So bear that in mind. I do want to say, and I don't want to be negative Nelly, but since the pandemic, there's silver linings from the pandemic. It was clear how atrocious we were treating our elderly in nursing homes. They were okay, but they weren't very good. Some were very bad. Okay? It shone us a spotlight, not just in Quebec, across the world, but especially in Quebec. And I have to say, and I'm in the nursing homes all the time, compared to 3-4 years ago, I even have some clients saying, you know what, Matt? This is better than I thought. And it's actually pretty good. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and say it's amazing. Okay, it's still institutional. We have our challenges. But we all got scarred, PTSD from the pandemic, and we have these visions of nursing homes being absolutely atrocious. Things are improving. And I'm seeing that with my own eyes. What does it cost? Here you go. Today, in 2024, a private room with a private bathroom in a CHSLD is $2,142.30. 2 beds in a room, $1,789. Very rarely these days will we see 3 beds in a room. Since the pandemic, they're almost all gone. So it's either going to be shared or individual. So $2,142.30. If you can't afford that, you have the right to apply for a reduction in your rent. They go through everything. They go through assets, bank account and stuff, but if it's truly legitimate and you can't afford that, the government will never charge you more than what you're bringing in. They won't rely on your kids to have to pay the extra money. Okay? By the way, I also get this question, $2,142 compared to some of the other dollars I showed you, not so bad. I would also add, though, the true cost for every single room in a CHSLD is about $9,000 a month. So we're all paying, as taxpayers, the difference of $7,000 a month for every single room in a CHSLD in Quebec. It's expensive to take care of our loved ones. It's just the reality. Okay? Should it go down to 7,000 or 8,000? It probably should. Is there bureaucracy? It should. It's a whole other conversation, but it's a lot of money to care for people. All right, very quickly, and I don't take credit for this. My wife is a downsizing transition specialist, but I asked her last week when I was preparing, can I take a couple of your slides at least for downsizing tips? So I got authority from Stephanie. And then we'll wrap it up. Why less is more? A couple of reasons. For your own sanity, you know, if you're going through hallways and stuff, there's clutter all over, you have to declutter. Okay? Less is more. If ever you're going to sell your property, buyers don't want to see clutter. You got to start reducing. And start early. We're having this conversation, and maybe in your head, you know, maybe I will downsize in 4 or 5 years. Guess what? You could start now. There's nothing holding you back to start downsizing right now. I'm just as guilty. I'm not ready to move, but our basement, as I found out with the floods, I had way too much junk in there that I should have started downsizing. So start early. 6 months rule. Give yourself, challenge yourself. If you haven't used something in 6 months, do I really need it? Now, We're in Canada, in Montreal. Don't get rid of the shovels if you're staying for the next few years. You need, But think about the things in the basement or in your linen closet. Do we really need 5 sets of everything and dishes and holidays and, so start thinking about that 6 months rule. A very helpful tip, 1 room at a time. What we usually do is we start in a room, dilly-dally, and then we go to another room, dilly-dally, and before you know it, it's even worse than it was. So do it 1 room at a time. Start with the rooms that you're probably not going to use if you downsize. If it's a 4-bedroom house, how about starting with bedroom 3 and 4? Start with the basement. Start with the garage. And when you're doing this exercise, you're creating 3 piles. The yes pile. I need this. This is coming with me. The maybe pile. Not sure. Maybe, not sure. And the no pile. And when you finish your day, you get rid of that no pile the same day. Because what's going to happen, you're going to be up at night, you're going to have a coffee in the morning, and slowly things start moving over to the maybe pile. And that's wrong. Once it's no, get rid of it. Okay? Now, I often get asked, where does it all go? So, first and foremost, start with family. Pre-warning, a lot of your kids don't want your stuff. And it's painful because I see this all the time. You spent a fortune. You've got memories. And you've got the Royal Daltons and the this and the that and the china that you have to polish. And your kids are turning around. Are you kidding me? Love you, Ma or Dad, but I'm not taking that. And it's insulting. You paid a fortune for it. So now it becomes like a psychological thing, but try family, extended family. Maybe there's a student going out to residence or out of province or whatever. Start with family. You might get some takers. Estate sales are also popular. A little difficult. Estate sales it's a way of getting rid of some stuff, maybe get some money for it. This is very painful if 2 big dining room or bedroom units that won't fit into where you're going, and you spent you saved up for months and months and months, and you're going to get 10 cents on the dollar for it. Ouch. That hurts. So it's very psychological and emotional doing this. However, it's a way to get a little revenue and, more importantly, help with downsizing. Garage sales is more for the knickknacks, but you can get rid of a lot of stuff in garage sales. You're not going to become millionaires with garage sales, but you're going to get rid of it. And if you're a couple, and I've seen this happen, the wife wanted to get rid of some tools. And because you need 7 screwdrivers, really? How about 3? Can we negotiate 4 in the garage sale? And I saw with my own eyes that he was sneaking a couple screwdrivers back into his toolbox. It's again, emotional. But garage sales is a great way to at least get rid of stuff. Donations are becoming more and more popular. I'm going to have a list of places to donate, which you'll have in writing as well. And it's getting popular because you're giving a second life to your furniture, your whatever you can. There's immigration, there's refugees, people in need all throughout the island of Montreal. So donations are becoming very popular because there's also the feel-good component. I'm helping someone else. Okay? After all that, can't give it to the family. You can't even donate it. You can't sell it. You can't get rid of it in a garage sale. Bite the bullet. You throw it out. You get rid of it either in your own garbage cans or 1-800-GOT-JUNK and say goodbye.
And somebody will pass by and pick up stuff. By the end of the day, it's gone.
It is so true what you're saying. It's amazing. You wake up the next morning, the 1-800-GOT-JUNK already came through? No. People, so you have to discard. Painful, but you have to do that. All right. Okay. Just very quickly, but you'll have this in writing. So Renaissance is obviously, and there's probably more on this list that you even know about. Welcome Collective, excellent organization. I've had them on my show. They'll even go and pick up furniture. Not too many people go up and pick furniture. And it goes to refugees, okay? So Welcome Collective, Eco centers are getting quite popular. Eco Collect is another organization. It's kind of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but feel good. They renew stuff ecologically. Entraide Diabétique is popular. This next one is I'm biased because I'm on the board of Nova, which is a very popular organization, and they have Nova thrift shops in the West Island. 100% of that goes to pay the nurses for Nova. Okay, and Le Support is another good organization that will help pick up. Okay, so you'll get this in writing, but there's a few, and I'm sure some of you might have your own pearls where you can donate to. All right. How did I do on time? Are we okay? Yeah? All right. So we'll open up.
Well, Matt, that was terrific. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have more than 10 minutes for Q&A. For the in-person audience, you have to use the mic for the Zoom audience to hear. So I see a hand up, and I'm coming to you with the mic, and I'll ask the Atwater Library staff to alert me to any questions in the Zoom chat, and then I'll alert Matt. Here you are.
I've been very interested for years in the idea of naturally occurring care, care residence, whatever the acronym is. And it seems to me I live on a street that fits the definition, and I've talked to some of my friends and neighbors on the street, and everyone, well, you know, I've got my own handyman, I've got my own this, I've got my own that. I wondered, the CLSC on the website certainly offers absolutely no information. Is anyone in Montreal providing any support or help as they used to for getting cooperative housing?
Right, it's a good question. I will say Montreal is behind. What we're talking about is naturally occurring communities where it's older adults living in their own apartments, condos, but they're surrounded with services all around, and more people start to move there, and before you know it, you have this naturally occurring environment for older adults. It's starting. We're seeing it in Ontario. It's certainly happening in the United States. Slowly but surely, we're seeing this in Montreal. I'm going to take it one step further with the REM. I bet you with the REM, we're going to start to see more of these naturally occurring environments because we're starting to see some communities being built up. Yes, for families, but also I would project in the next 5 years, REM will advance the process of naturally occurring communities. I will say though that you need to be careful about a false sense of security because it's all wonderful hypothetically, but what happens when something happens to you and now you may become wheelchair bound? And well, I'm in a naturally occurring community and someone's going to take care of me. Well, maybe not. So I always just preface that it's the Golden Girls, right? In a big community is what we want. But where the challenges usually become is when one person, especially if each person is investing in this. What if one dies? Their investment comes out. Who's going to pay for that nurse or doctor that's been coming in and so on? So I always I don't want to knock it. In fact, I think it's a very good thing, but sometimes it's not as rosy as people are saying they are.
Okay, another hand up. Here you are.
I inherited my house, and my father did not give away paint cans. Is there anyone who will come and pick them up?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Could you say it a little louder?
I inherited a house from my father, and he did not throw out paint cans. Is there any organization that will come and pick them up? There must be 25 or 30.
Right, that's a good question. I don't have an organization. However, I don't know what municipality you're in, Saint Laurent. So my first call would be to the city because there's waste management collection in most municipalities. You know, maybe it's only 4 times a year, but that would be my first call is to your local municipality that will take paint cans and other turpentine and so on. Okay.
In answer to the question over here, yes, in Milton Park, there's a co-op there, but apart from that, they have a community center where they have a group of young people, mostly students and kids, who'll come and change your light bulb or do whatever, or clean or do whatever you want done. But you have to be careful about security and that kind of thing with them.
But I love the intergenerational aspect to that. And we're going to see more and more of that. Tech is popular with intergenerational, hiring some students to help you on your iPhone or your iPad.
Or coming to the Atwater Library next Thursday afternoon for free one-on-one help.
Nice segue.
Okay, I'm coming to you.
Very good lecture, eye-opening, because there are certain things we do have to prepare for. And I went through some of this with my mother who passed away. But basically, it comes down to our health and our money, because we have to decide according to that. So what should I do? Go to a financial planner at the bank and try to figure out how much?
Yeah, so it's actually very popular, and that's what I was mentioning about the other Lynn. If you do have your bank, or if you have your own financial advisor, I always recommend ask them to do a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. They've got all your assets, they know your income, and that's something they should be doing, and many do it. Because one of the problems we all face is the fear of the unknown. That's creating the anxiety. And then if you could have a financial advisor say, you know what, you're okay for the next 10 or 15 years, or you're not, you just need to know. So push your financial advisors to do these 5 and 10-year projections. And sometimes you find out that was a little better than I thought, because we're so worried about running out of money, so that's a very good idea. Push that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, last question is from Helen in the Zoom audience. Matt, she wants to know, what are the prices for couples at retirement homes or CHSLDs?
Yeah, so the prices I gave, it could be for individuals or couples, and I'll explain where it could be a difference in price. A 2-bedroom apartment, usually couples would want a 2-bedroom apartment. It's the same price whether you're 1 or 2. You could be in a 1-bedroom apartment, it's the same rental price. Housekeeping, well, just because you're 2 is not a different charge. You're still getting housekeeping. Usually the only difference happens in meals and care. So if you're 2 and you want to go to the dining room for a meal a day, double up your cost of meals because you're 2. But your rent cost doesn't get changed because you're 2 people.